Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and still I rise. And still I rise, a liberated, unbought, unbossed, unafraid Democrat. And still I rise. And I rise today because I have grave and great concern for the American people. I fear for the lives of the American people. And I do so, Mr. Speaker, because if the President of the United States and his underlings and his persons who are in charge of very powerful agencies within the federal government, if they can convince this country or some significant portion of the people in this country that Miss Renee Good was a terrorist, I fear for the lives of the people in this country. In fact, I fear for my own life. I'm not afraid to speak truth to power. I'm not afraid to speak truth about power. I'm going to speak truth about power today, but I can tell you that I fear for our lives. Because if you can justify what happened to Miss Good after seeing with your very own eyes what took place, and if we can allow the king's men to conclude that only they can investigate this, remove the local constabulary from the process. If this can happen, I fear for our lives. We are now living in a country where people are expected to believe that this mother of three, a Christian woman, seated in her vehicle, yes, the vehicle was across the roadway, but that somehow she was a terrorist. The head of Homeland Security has as much as said so. A terrorist. Mr. Speaker, I fear for our lives because what we saw when this lady, this woman, was accosted. And I say accosted because men who had on masks in police regalia, I suppose, approached her rather aggressively, it seems to me. And one of them, in approaching, said, "Get the F out of the car." I'm not using the profanity, but that's what was said. You can see it for yourselves and you can hear it for yourselves. That is what was said. Get the F out of the car. When men can approach a female in a car and say this to her and expect her to immediately respond in a positive manner, and if she does not and attempts to drive away, if they can take her life, I fear for our lives. Do not assume that it can only happen to her. They aggressively approached her. Cars were going around her in various ways. But when she made her move to extricate herself, to move along, to move her car, officers started to shoot. She was shot. One officer shot through the side window as she was moving away. Now, you don't have to know this lady. I don't know her. I don't know who she was, other than what I have seen and what I have read. But the truth is, officers ought not be allowed to do what was done to this lady. There should be an investigation that includes the local constabulary. If you truly want to be transparent, if you truly believe in liberty and justice for all, if you want the people in this country to believe that what occurred was the right thing, then you would want the local constabulary to be involved. But no, this administration is shutting out the local investigation, and they are including only the federal investigation, which means by some thought processes that they have no desire to let this go to a trial. There are people who believe that this administration has no desire to let this case go to a trial. For edification purposes, I am one of them. I don't believe that they want this case to go to a trial. I think that this is why they have decided that only the federal authorities will investigate. I also believe that if the case goes to a trial, and if there is a conviction, and it is a federal conviction, I believe this president will do for the person or persons convicted. I believe he will do for them what he did for the people who assaulted the citadel of democracy on January 6th. I believe he will pardon. And I believe he will do it without question, reservation, or hesitation, just as he did it for those persons who assaulted this Capitol. And he did it immediately after being sworn in. Mr. Speaker, I fear for the lives of the American people. And again, I say that includes me. I think we have a reckless, ruthless outlaw who has found his way into the presidency. And to further validate my thinking, I have here the words of the President of the United States of America, Donald John Trump. Here are his words when asked if there were any limits on his international power. I know what happened within the country was national. This deals with international power. Give me just a moment, please, of your time so that I might connect these dots. When asked if there were any limits on his international power, here's his response. It's my own morality, my own mind is the only thing that can stop me. Some things bear repeating. My own morality, my own mind, it's the only thing that can stop me. Mr. President, what about Congress? What about the Constitution? What about the power to declare war? And where is that power vested? What about it, Mr. President? Only your mind? Only your morality? I won't go into the president's moral standards. I'll leave that to you. So what the president is saying is, this joint resolution, SJ Res 90, over in the Senate, here's a copy of it. Permit me to read some excerpts. It reads, joint resolution to direct the removal of the United States Armed Forces from hostilities within or against Venezuela that have not been authorized by Congress. SJ Res 90. It goes on to say, resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives. Eventually, if it passes the Senate, it has to come to the House for our approval. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America, in Congress assembled, Section 1, findings. Congress makes the following findings. 1, Congress has the sole power to declare war under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution. Mr. President, the Constitution still has some relevancy. The Constitution is not meaningless. Goes on to say, Congress has not yet declared war upon Venezuela or any person or organization within Venezuela, nor enacted a specific statutory authorization for use of military force within or against Venezuela. So, only his mind, his morality, that's the only thing that can stop him? This resolution won't stop him? Here's what he knows. He knows that if it passes the Senate, he knows that if it passes the House, he knows that he has a vote. And he knows that if he votes no with his veto, he knows or believes that it will not be overridden. Well, I still say this is the right thing to do. I say this because you cannot allow a president to do what he has done in terms of going to another country, bombing the country, to do this and not put some check on him. At least you have to try. You can't just allow it to happen and decide we'll wait until we can override his veto. Pass it in the Senate even if it never passes the House. You ought to pass it in the Senate. House should pass it. But if the House doesn't, the Senate is doing the right thing. Pass it. Let him know that there are some people who are watching. By the way, the president has also gone on to say that the five Republicans who voted for this to move forward, that they shouldn't hold public office again. Threats and intimidation. This president spells the word respect, F-E-A-R. That's respect. He wants people to fear him. I don't fear you, Mr. President. I'm concerned about your behavior. I'm concerned about what you might have your underlings in some way do to me. But I want you to know I will not be deterred, just as these senators are not being deterred. And yes, they are doing the right thing, notwithstanding the fact that you have a vote in this process. But they did it, and they're doing it. And I support what they're doing. The president, in doing what he's done, is doing the following. He's using the noble ends, not always noble, to justify ignoble means. Noble ends to justify ignoble means. That's what's happening in Venezuela. Only it is noble ends to justify unconstitutional means. I think some senators seem to agree with me on that. Unconstitutional means to justify what are perceived to be noble ends. The president of Venezuela is a part of this, but it's not about him. It's about the Constitution. It's about whether we will have a Constitution. if we're going to allow what are perceived to be noble ends to justify unconstitutional means, at some point the Constitution of the United States of America will become meaningless. Noble perceived ends to justify unconstitutional means. The president should have brought this to the attention of the Congress. He did not do so. He did, however, bring it to the attention of the oil companies. Have the oil companies replaced Congress in the United States of America? Is what they think more important than what we think, given that the Constitution has given us the authority to declare war? I know that this is a difficult topic for some people to embrace, but this is where we are. Congress has become irrelevant in the minds of this president, in the mind of this president. It's not relevant. It's not. His own morality, his own mind, is the only thing that can stop him. Well, Mr. President, you're wrong. Congress is relevant. And just as the Senate took this action, Congress should take action. Congress, meaning the House of Representatives. By definition, the House and the Senate make up the Congress. But the House of Representatives should take action. We have the power to do what has to be done. We have the power. Before I go further with that power, now I want to come back to, if I may, Ms. Good. If the president believes this about international law, if the president believes that the only thing is his mind, I believe he believes the same thing about domestic law. I think he believes that the only thing that he has to concern himself with is whether he agrees, whether he thinks it's right. I believe he thinks that what those officers did can be justified simply because they are officers of the law. I support officers of the law. I don't support outlaws who are pretending to be officers of the law when they are committing crimes. My uncle was a deputy sheriff. I support officers of the law. But I'm not going to support officers who would do what happened to this lady, and the president is then going to immediately back them up. Head of Homeland Security immediately backs them up. The Vice President of the United States immediately backs them up. They set the narrative to allow the exoneration of the persons who did these dastardly things. They have put in motion immediately, without an investigation. Well, you say, well, you didn't investigate, Al. No, but I'm investigating by virtue of seeing what happened and having read news articles and having looked into it. They didn't do as much. Just immediately concluded that this lady was a terrorist. I'm not a terrorist, but if you can conclude that she is, I'm not sure that anybody is safe from being captioned, labeled, designated a terrorist. I'm not sure. So I'm standing up for her today. I'm standing up for the American people today. I'm standing up for those good law enforcement officers who would have approached that lady with a kinder gesture, not as bullies, who would have approached her and simply said, "Ma'am, would you please step out of the car?" What is wrong with being kind? You got the gun. What is wrong with being respectful? No, the president, as a bully, has passed on his tendencies to those who are under him. It starts at the top. The tone and tenor starts at the top. It starts with a bullying president. So now you have officers who believe that they can bully people into doing things. I imagine this lady was frightened. I would have been, rushing up to me, mask on, get out of the effing car. That may have been the last thing I'd want to do. May have been the last thing she wanted to do. So the president, in his thinking, believes he is above and beyond the law, whether it is international law or whether it is domestic law. That's his thinking. And so I come back to where I was when I said the Senate is doing the right thing. They are. And I said the House should do the right thing, and we can. And the president fears what the House can do. He fears it because he knows that this is where an indictment can take place, right here in this House. He knows it. And he knows that that indictment can be very harmful to him, very harmful to him. So he's afraid of what the House can do. He has as much as said it without using those explicit words. He said it. He has said it. He said that they will find some reason to impeach me. Find some reason. Mr. President, it's easy to find the reasons because you've given them to us. Venezuela is a reason. We don't have to look very far or very hard to find the reason. It's right before our eyes. The reasons are there. It's not about whether we can find the reasons. The question is whether we can find the will. It's the will. Do we have the willpower to do what should be done? And I'm talking about bipartisan effort. It should be bipartisan. But if it can't be bipartisan, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to stop this reckless, ruthless president. If the Senate can go forward, knowing the rules and how things are likely to play out, if we could pass legislation here just yesterday that I supported, going over to the Senate, good likelihood that their behavior is not going to be acceptable to me. If we can do this, we can also do the same thing with the one thing that can stop a reckless, ruthless, outlaw president. The one thing. That one thing, my friends, is what the president fears most. And he fears even having votes on it take place. Now, there are people who would say that, well, if you can't pass it, why vote on it? Because the American people need to know that there are some people who see the wrong and who are willing to take a stand against the wrong. They see the injustice and they're willing to take a stand against the injustice, even when that stand may not result in what is the desired end. A noble end, a noble cause, ought not be avoided simply because you can't bring it to fruition today. Ought not be. Yes, this thing that we can do is almost sacred. Yes, it requires considerable thought. Yes, this is something that we should do when we have the evidence. Well, friends, I guess the evidence is comparable to the evidence that we had on January 6th when we saw it before our very eyes. After all, this is an indictment here. The trial will take place in the Senate. So there's just this one thing that he fears. And he's very much concerned about it and what we will do. Well, I can't speak for anybody else. I don't speak for any of my colleagues who are in Congress I don't speak for anybody without the Congress. I don't. I speak for one person. So do not now say that the Democrats are doing something. Just say Al Green. Tell the truth. Because on some issues, I believe that it is better to stand alone than not stand at all. So I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to agree with what the Senate has said. And by the way, I would invite you to read all of it because there's much more to it than what I read to you. But I'm going to agree with what the Senate has said when they said the Congress has the power to declare war. And they go on to say Congress has not yet declared war. You had no right under the Constitution to do what you did, but you do have the right to do it if the standard is your mind and your morality. And we should not assume that this applies only to international affairs. It applies to domestic affairs as well. So I'm going to do what the Senate has done as best as I can, but it'll just be me. It's not the Democratic Party. I believe that these are votes of conscience. Let your conscience be your guide, members. Don't follow my lead, members. Don't do it because I'm doing, and I don't think that there are very many who would. Do it because you believe. If you don't believe, do not do it. I'm not asking anybody to vote for it when I bring it to the attention of Congress. I'm not asking you to. Don't vote for it if your convictions don't command that you do so. Do what you think is right. Senate has done what they believe to be correct. And I assure you, without question I assure you of this, I will bring articles of impeachment against the President of the United States of America for taking our military to war against Venezuela, for doing it based upon some theory that in and of itself does not align with the Constitution. Some theory that if you have an indictment, you can now send in the police or the Justice Department and various officers associated. You can send them in to do something, in this case to seize the president of a country, and use the military to back them up. And I marvel at how people will say, well, they did it in Panama. If we did it in Panama, we can do it here. God, the list is endless of things that have been done that were wrong, that at some point we had to stop. It was wrong to bring folks to this country in chains. They thought it was lawful at the time, I suppose, in their minds. But we stopped it. So regardless as to what has happened prior to this second in time, I say to you, the Constitution still rules. The Constitution is above indictments. Constitution is above the things that are in the mind of a president that he believes would give him the authority to do these things. It's the Constitution that counts. And if you're going to have a Constitution, you have to make it count. It doesn't count because the words are on paper. It's how we react and behave in response to the words that are on paper. It's the Constitution that counts. And an indictment is no constitutional reason to send the military, to send a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, to send planes in large numbers, to send other military paraphernalia. Indictments don't accord you that, Mr. President. And the only way we can stop this is with impeachment. That is the only thing. Why is impeachment? Because, friends, it would say to the next Donald John Trump, we will not tolerate unconstitutional means that are justified. You can't decide that you are going to use some sort of means justifies the ends theory to go to war. He needs to be impeached, he needs to be convicted, and he needs to be removed from office. Impeached, convicted, and removed. However, if we can't do it now, that doesn't mean that the process can't start now. If we can't do it now or sometime in the near future, it doesn't mean that we should not let the American people know that we know that what has been done is wrong. We should protect the Constitution, not allow this to happen. And the only way we can do it, while I believe that this is good and I support it, SJ Res 90, I support it. I believe it's good. But the real remedy, the remedy that can make the difference is to impeach, convict, and remove Donald John Trump from the presidency. Well, friends, this is where I stand. I don't do these things to make friends. I do them because I care about my country. I do it because I believe when I salute the flag in liberty and justice for all. I do it because I believe in government of the people, by the people, for the people, and that includes the people who have the authority to enforce the Constitution. And we are the people. We are the we and we the people. I believe we have to do whatever we can when we can. And this is something I can do and I will do. And by the way, those who say that, well, you're just taking up time. We take up more time in between votes than it takes to vote on articles of impeachment. We took up more time just recently in between votes than it takes to vote on articles of impeachment. It doesn't take up the time that prevents us from doing other things. And all of these things that people will say now in terms of why we can't do it, when we get the opportunity to by their standards, they will push all of these things aside and move forward. Well, I'll be there with you. I'm not asking you to be here with me, but I will be there with you. I will be there because it's the country, it's the Constitution, it's the republic that we must protect. I promise you, friends, I promise you, I will not be deterred. There's no need, not that anybody would, but there's no need to try to dissuade me. What happened in Venezuela was an act of war. The president doesn't have the authority to do that without consulting with the Congress. The Congress may very well conclude that you shouldn't do it. Maybe the Congress doesn't want to take over Venezuela. Maybe the Congress doesn't want to do this to provide the oil companies with greater revenues. Maybe the Congress has a different point of view. Your point of view is but one. The Congress has a right to have its point of view recognized as well. We must, I must, others can do what they may. I must take this stand. I will take this stand. This president will face articles of impeachment for his declaration of war based upon his moral standards and his mind, based upon what he thinks he can do without congressional input. I will take a stand. I will bring the articles of impeachment. And I yield back the balance of my time.